Okay, everybody, we are still in the wind section, and wind is the impact of reach. And when I was thinking about who could best illustrate the impact of reach, I honestly couldn't think of a better person than myself because I am literally sitting here because of that. So, my presentation is called The Velocity of Trust. And crafting an authentic personal brand is the key to having doors blown open for you long before you're in the room. Establishing who you are and showing up that way consistently is just as important as what you know. And the story that is told about you starts with the one you tell about yourself. And, as I mentioned before, these themes are not unique across the elements, they are just different aspects of it. So I would like to share my story with you. If you followed me for a while, you might have first met me as Deborah Korn, the intergalactic ambassador to the Printerverse, or maybe you know me today as the executive director of Girls Who Print. If you're from Europe, you might know me as Deborah from the internet, which is actually what they call me. And maybe we've met at an event. Maybe you've attended a session I presented or an online event, or we've taken a selfie together. People often come up to me and say, I've been following you for years. Thank you for everything you do for the industry. I see you everywhere. And why that is amazing to hear. The interesting part is that most of my work is done from home, creating content, recording podcasts, sharing what I've learned at events, moderating discussions, hosting events like this. And it's the reach of my work that is what keeps traveling. It's in people's feeds, it's on their screens, it's in podcast playlists and newsletters and industry articles, and it's shared from one person to another. Now, wind is an omnipresent element, but it is invisible until it touches something and moves it. So think about a tree swaying in the wind. That is when you see the impact of wind. Today, I want to share how an authentic personal brand can create that kind of reach, opening doors long before you have ever walked through them. So I want to go back to 2007, which I'm calling the first gust of wind. I received an invitation to join LinkedIn when it first opened. I didn't know what it was, but my friend Eric Hegdal, shout out to you, sir, said, hey, this is a professional social media and you should get on it. And I did. I jumped on LinkedIn, I created a profile, and it pretty much sat there dormant for 2 years until I lost my job in advertising. And after that happened, I had networked with people to try to, find work or see how my skills could translate into something else. And in 2009, LinkedIn launched the groups. And I was like, wow, this is a lot easier than me looking for people. I will bring them to me. So I started the Print Production Professionals group on LinkedIn. And originally it was for other print buyers because that's where I came from. I was a production manager in advertising. And I invited printers because we work with printers and they always know when there's jobs. I invited creative people, designers, the paper people, everyone that I had contact with on that side of the industry, let's say. And as the group is growing and I'm networking and I'm meeting people, it became very obvious to me that my purpose of bringing people to me for me to look for work was not what everybody else there was for. And what happened is that the people in the group started using the group in unexpected ways. I didn't plan any of this. And what happened is that the customers started asking what things were called, and the printers would answer. There would be conversations about, is this thing reprint worthy? Whose fault was it? Those were very lively discussions. And when there was 500 people in the group, I will never forget, I received an email from a creative director at a global advertising agency. Now, I come from advertising agencies, and I will tell you that these are not people that like spend a lot of their time thanking people for anything. The agencies would win the awards, and magically, things just appeared in magazines and on billboards and on the sides of buses. It didn't have anything to do with the production people and the printers, of course. But the creative director wrote me an email and thanked me for creating this group. And what she said to me was it was like having 500 colleagues down the hall. And I just stared at this email because I could not believe that the creative director stopped whatever she was doing and sent me an email and thanked me when I had a career in advertising, and the creative director was like, what do you want, a participation trophy for doing your job? Like, there was no, back then in Gen X land, there was no, this is, there wasn't a lot of what do you mean you're uncomfortable with the workload? Like, do you want a job or do you not want a job? But what I realized after that email is that I didn't know what was happening, but because she had written the email to me, I knew that something was happening. So I decided to keep building this group. And this was long before, any of the social media channels were even started, really. There weren't a lot of them at that point. So when the group hit 5,000 people, a gentleman named Nigel Cliff found me, and he's a LinkedIn coach. Well, he wasn't at the time, he actually worked in the printing industry. But he found me, and he had this website he started called Print Media Center. And I had these 5,000 people in this LinkedIn group, and we decided to bring the audience and the website together. And in many ways at that time in LinkedIn, you couldn't share pictures, you couldn't share videos, you couldn't do anything like that. You could barely share links. But the point was that you really didn't have the resource that it is now to just click over to the information you wanted. So I, was like, okay, this is a good idea, because as I'm watching what's going on in this group, I have a perspective that other people don't have. There's nobody else that has a living, breathing focus group of the printing industry, so that I could see what matters to them and I can help people find resources. But in my new role at Print Media Center, I was told at the time, so you're going to be the face of Print Media Center. It's your group. They know you. So you need to get out there on social media and you need to start blogging. And I was like, I'm a production person. I'm a behind the scenes person. If you've ever worked in an advertising agency or dealt with advertising agency, you know that they hide the production people when the clients come, because we are animals, and we are animals for a reason. Things have to get done, and we don't have time for games. And I spent quite some time on who the hell cares about anything I have to say. And I just had to get over it. And there was no roadmap at the time. There was the only, let's say, influencers out there were the people who had created companies teaching people how to use social media. There weren't just regular people out there, tweeting for a living. So I chose authenticity. I was like, I'm not going to try and serve the way I think this group, this community wants to be served. I'm just going to serve them in the ways that I can. And I wrote this post and I called it All Guts and No Glory. And it was about my time working in advertising. And it resonated with people. And as I kept writing things and sharing them, and people reacted to me, I gained more confidence to do it again. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't always positive feedback, but even in the, feedback or the questionable feedback or, the people saying, who the hell do you think you are? There was always something to learn, even if it was how to engage in a professional way, like, respond, or my biggest lesson, how not to engage, how to just leave it alone and not, get caught up in that, you know, troll behavior and things like that. So as I started doing more things, my bio started to evolve as I would do new things. And early on in 2011, the first event I ever went to, I met Pat McGrew. And Pat McGrew, who is the managing director of Girls Who Print, and she is the founder of the McGrew Group and an industry analyst. And she's won numerous Lifetime Achievement Awards. American Airlines featured her in their magazine as a frequent flyer and did an interview with her. So she is a legend in the printing industry. And she recognized that I was curious and that I was willing to learn. And she really took me under her wing. And the first piece of advice she gave to me was just say yes to everything and we will work it out later, which was a very, very scary thing. But I am not even kidding. Like once you open yourself up to things like this, they happen. And not long after that, I got a phone call and I was asked if I would do a keynote at the the Paper Trade Association, and the National Paper Trade Association, NPTA. And I was like, sure, of course. I had never done a presentation. I didn't exactly know what a keynote was. I thought I was just doing a presentation, but I did it. I definitely white knuckled that podium. But as I was doing my presentation from my authentic self, the first thing I did was say, "You're all tree killers." And they looked at me and I was like, "Oh, you don't think that is what everybody in the world is saying about you? We have a problem here." And the president of Two Sides North America was sitting in the audience, and he came up to me after and he said, we need your help. We're launching in North America. It started in England, and whatever is going on here, we want you to help us grow this organization. So I started working for Two Sides North America because I said yes by just jumping into it. Working for Two Sides North America gave me visibility, and Printing Impressions came around and asked me if I would contribute to their content over there. And the first article I wrote was called Coffee is for Closers, because now that I had, Print Media Center, I had to sell things. And I never, being on the buying end, I certainly knew what it was like to be, I'm going to just say harassed, because in advertising agencies, you really are harassed by people you don't know and cold calls and all of that other stuff. And now I was on the other side of it. And I really had a life altering moment about how hard sales can be. And I wrote an article called Coffee is for Closers, which is from Glengarry Glen Ross. And it went crazy on printing impressions, which gave me more reach into their audience, into the industry. And from there, I became the intergalactic ambassador to the Printerverse. Now here I am with my own job that I have created. And so what is my job? What is my role? And primarily, I felt that my role was going to be to learn with everybody else. Because what did I know and what don't I know? I was a print customer. I had nothing to do with the other side. My relationship was with printers was here's my file, see you later when it's done, and if things go wrong in between there, not my problem, that's your job. Now that those relationships have changed, of course, along the way, but that's the way that it used to be back there. So, what I didn't know, what I wanted to learn about, I was able to now go ask questions, find answers, find the people. They were in my LinkedIn group. When somebody asked a question, I'll never forget, like when this all first started, the a phrase was white paper factory. I had it, I will admit, it was years before I understood what anybody meant by it. And a lot of that was because I was afraid to ask questions that everybody was going to know that I did not know the answers to. So when I changed that perspective to, I'm learning just like everybody else. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not going to pretend that I do. Authentically, I'm going to ask every remedial question there is. And you know what? There were thousands of people who needed that answer too. And I would discover things at events. I would, in meeting with people, and I would bring everything back to this LinkedIn group, this community. And what I learned from that was to give, keep giving before you ask anything. And I mean, before you ask, sign up for my newsletter, and by the way, back then there wasn't a lot of things to ask. So I would ask them to sign up for my newsletter and I would ask them to connect with me on the other social media channels. But within that, I felt that I had a loyalty to those people. And as many times over the last 17 years, as I have been asked, I have never once sold access to the audience. Not through a mailing list, not through an email blast, not through sponsored posts, nothing like that. I felt that protecting the trust that I had of the audience, that whatever exchange we were having for time and attention was going to be worth their value. I had to protect that. I feel the same way about Girls Who Print. Everybody who's here today, I feel a duty that you should trust that this event was worth your time. So, as I mentioned, Pat McGrew before, when I first met her, she was working at Kodak, and then she changed jobs and she started working at HP. And when she started working at HP, she brought me in. And at that time, I was really only doing social media. I would literally travel the world tweeting. It was the craziest job ever. But I invented it. Trust me when I tell you, I was the first person in the printing industry to do a selfie. I was the first person to do a broadcast from an industry event, and everybody thought I was insane. And nobody knew what I did. And it was very hard for me to try to, talk to people about the impact of social media. But through my work, doors were getting opened for me. So Pat introduced me to HP, who I traveled the world with and still do all those years ago. And HP brought me to my first Drupa in 2016. At that Drupa, I was there for two reasons. One, I was working for HP to make sure to do color print manage print buyer color management. In other words, it's great that your press is going, the speed it's supposed to go, but why is the polar bear yellow? Things that engineers don't look at. So the job, they were just introducing their inkjet press for the first time, and I was there to ensure that every sample that people took would be something they would be proud to give their customers. And Drupa had its own social media contest every day. And I won it on the first day because I was doing a lot of sharing from the HP booth. It was my job. And when they gave me the trophy, I named it Klaus and it was hashtag Klaus. And if I can tell you that hashtag Klaus started trending in Germany, and the news crews came because they're like, who's Klaus? What is going on here? That attention led the director of Drupa to come down from the office, Sabine Gelderman, and we started a relationship. And in 2020, during the pandemic, there was supposed to be a Drupa, but it was a virtual Drupa. I became the virtual Drupa ambassador, and I worked with them. And then in 2024, they hired me to run their theater at Drupa. Now, the most interesting part of this is that in 2024, when I stepped foot on the fairgrounds at Drupa, more people knew me as Deborah from Girls Who Print than Deborah from the internet. And that was the first time it had ever happened. And because of all the work I had done for Girls Who Print for so many years and creating that visibility, the doors to Girls Who Print were open before I even arrived. Everybody wanted me to come to their booth. I gave away almost 3,000 Girls Who Print buttons at the event, and I would have given away more if I had them. I have one left, and that is only because it was stuck on something in my luggage. Otherwise, if you have one, it might be one of those eBay things at some point. But so the doors opened at Drupa before I even arrived. Girls Who Print was known, it was respected, and that foundation was ready to build upon. And that is the impact of reach and reputation. And here is something critical to remember, and it's been said before today. The story people tell about you starts with the story you tell about yourself, not to yourself, about yourself. It's in your LinkedIn profile. It's in your professional bio. It's how you introduce yourself and how other people introduce you. That's one of my pet peeves. Don't let people introduce you unless you tell them how you want to be introduced. And I don't mean in a personal conversation. I mean, if you're going to take a stage, if you're going to do a keynote, if you're going to, do a session, every speaker on this panel, on this programming over the 2 days submitted a bio to me because I did not want to make up a story about them. I wanted to share their story. It's in every post you write, every podcast you record, every conversation you have, every introduction you make. And I mean hi, my name is Deborah Korn. I'm the intergalactic ambassador to the Printerverse, which is, that's actually a pretty good door opener to tell you the truth. But the point is that when people experience consistency, they know what to expect. And if you know me outside of my house or this screen, you're going to meet the same me that out in the world that I am here. I might be a little quieter. I might not curse as much as I'm out there. I'm a New Yorker. I'm controlling myself right now. But otherwise, it's not going to be like, wow, she is so different in person. And I have heard that about a million people. Also, with some of the LinkedIn pictures that people are still using, like from their high school year back in your yearbook, and you're like, oh, hi, I didn't recognize you. So trust becomes your reputation, and your reputation is your personal brand. So here is your personal branding assignment from me. Decide what you want to be known for professionally. Then make sure that story is supported everywhere people experience you. Second, ask 5 people what they know you for professionally, and then compare those answers to what you want to be known for. And if they don't match, that is where your work begins. So once your reputation catches the wind, it will carry your foundation, your reach, your energy, and your momentum across the industry.